Meeting called to order at 7:05 on February 27th. Thank you all for coming this evening, and and unfortunately, Mayor Swadley is out of town tonight. He's in Washington, D.C., doing some lobbying for municipalities with our legislatures. So go Tim. So in the meantime, you got me tonight. So Candy, are you ready for our roll call?
I'm all set.
All right, thanks.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you. Reeves.
Here.
Hirsch.
Here.
Wozniak Scanlon.
Here.
Lagaki.
Here.
Butler.
Here.
Caravello.
Here.
Payton.
Yep.
Schumacher.
Here.
Hiley.
Here.
Jensen.
Here, if you didn't hear that.
Thank you. So we have 10 alders present. Mayaski and Sherlucky are absent and excused.
All right, thank you, Candy. I believe we are in compliance with open meetings law. Next on the agenda is public comment period. Is there anybody online or in the audience that has a public comment? Seeing and hearing none, do any alders have any communications they would like to communicate this evening? Quiet group, I guess. I don't have anything. Dave, was there anything from the mayor that needs to be communicated? Yes, not. Next item on the agenda was going to be a presentation by the Park and Rec's Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, but that's being postponed until sometime in March. Phil, do you have something else you want to say?
Yes, it will be postponed until a future time when we have some more input onto the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan.
Yeah, we just got word that the Sustainability Committee is close to finishing their report, and they had some items that would possibly be a good fit for the Corp, so we decided to have the opportunity to view those together and try to make changes, and so that's why there's a delay. And with that, the presenter from MSA was also going to present on the Teagan Farm master plan, but because she had combined both the Corp and the master plan, we're going to delay that too until a later date. So stay tuned. Okay, the next item on the agenda is council minutes or the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything that they would like to vote on separately with those? Any changes? Motion to approve by Alder Jensen.
Second.
Second by Elder Schumacher. Again, any changes for anybody? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is old business. Ordinance 2 of 2024 coming from Public Safety. Elder Jensen, is that you?
Yes. Let's see, that would be, on there. That's ordinance 2 of 2024 to repeal section 70-195 30-minute parking limit. I would move for approval.
I would second.
Motion by Jensen, second by Peyton. Do you want to
Sure.
give
Yep.
any
There were-
background or explanation?
There were 3 locations that had 30-minute parking, and it was deemed that it was no longer necessary, so we recommend the repeal of those.
Understood.
Yep.
All right. Anybody have any questions on that or any edits, comments?
I think, was this the one that was regarding some of the 200 or the Water Street building and us working out some?
These were 30-minute parking. One would be in front of Viking
that's
Brew Pub. The other one was next to City Hall,
That's the next one. Oh,
the old City Hall, the Opera House.
that's right.
and
I was
then,
mixing them up.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it's the
they're
next
30
one that I'm thinking of.
Right.
So
Okay.
never mind.
Yeah.
And Candy, just to let you know, on this ordinance, the photo for the 30-minute parking is actually in the next ordinance, so we need to move those, picture.
They still do that. That was, okay.
Is that, okay, so it's this one.
Take care of that.
Pardon? All right, so this one is the correct one, and I guess the next one.
Okay.
All right, thanks. All right, any other comments, edits? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next ordinance also comes from Public Safety Ordinance 3 of 2024. Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you. This is Ordinance 3, 2024, an ordinance to amend Section 70-180, and I recommend approval.
I'll also second.
So, motion by Jensen, second by Peyton. Alder Jensen, do you want to explain this? Or do you,
This is,
Brett's online too, if you want to.
Sorry?
I said Brett
Oh, yeah,
Airbear's
okay.
online.
I heard some other. Okay. Yeah, this is to try and bring some consistency to downtown parking. You're looking at wait a minute, downtown parking. Make sure I got the right one here.
This is the no parking from 3 a.m. to 5
3 a.m.
a.m.
to 5 a.m., right. So
So
just
I
to
gotta
bring
turn
some
on the
consistency.
city council meeting,
So that
the,
there are people who are living downtown can't. I'm sorry?
There's a guest on that that needed to be muted. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. Yeah, this was to put some consistency in the downtown parking and to help people who did live downtown, they could park overnight without being ticketed.
So I guess I was not clear on this. So is this revoking all no parking from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m.? Because the only thing that was struck out was South Water Street.
That was the one that was, yes, that is the only place, South Water Street, which would be, and that this is a test that, you know, the mayor wanted to do. He wanted to test this one area to make sure that it was going to be working for us.
And so all the other places
Yeah,
are
everything
still
else is
3
still
to...
going to be right, and this will be the test bed, and then if this works out, then we'll address the rest of it.
Okay. I just want to be clear on
Yeah.
that.
just
Sorry,
real quick.
I didn't make that clear. so-
Director Airbear?
Yeah, I think this has to do with the development on Water Street as well.
Yeah.
Alder Jensen, you're correct. I think this is a test, but it also has to do with the development that's planned to occur on Water Street.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments,
Yeah, thank you for the
clarifications?
clarifications, everybody. I was thinking that the test situation was one of the different ordinances, but this is the one that it's meant to be. Thanks.
Right.
Okay. Is that clear to everybody? Any other questions? All in favor of this ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Phil, you got this one. So, ordinance 4 of 2024. Alder Caravello.
Yes, this is ordinance 4 of 2024. Plan development, general development plan for 1005 Stoughton Avenue, Stoughton, Wisconsin, and I so move.
Second?
Pardon? Butler. Okay, thank you. All right. And you want to explain this one?
Sure. This is to rezone a property from multifamily residential MR10 to planned development, general development plan. The property at, where's the address again? At 1005 Stoughton Avenue, which is currently vacant due to the structure that was there previously burned down a couple of years ago. And this is so that Habitat for Humanity can put another structure on that piece of property.
We have somebody else online that. All right. Any other clarifications or explanations that people need?
Also, I should probably add where the rezone is necessary because of the unit that they're going to construct is going to have it's utilizing the space very wisely that's there, so it requires a different zoning class.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Comments? I'm trying to scroll the screen to see if anybody's hands are up. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to new business. R19 of 2024, coming from Finance Committee, Elder Schumacher.
All right, this is Resolution 19 of 2024, the resolution for preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers for 2024 street and sidewalk projects. So moved.
Second.
This is sort of the annualized thing that we do for special assessing and shared costs for sidewalk, gutter, that sort of replacement on those streets listed on the screen.
Okay.
We do have an item in we've kept it in our future agenda, and we'll address it at some point about how other municipalities handle their special assessments. We've had it on our future agenda for a bit now, but we'll get around to that.
Okay. Director Airbear, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'll just highlight that we assess 50% for curb and gutter, 50% for sidewalk, and 100% for aprons. We have very little retaining wall, but the first 4 feet is the responsibility of the property owner. Then the remainder is the city. We try everything we can do to reduce or not touch retaining walls. I think we only have 1 in this year's projects. The rest we've been able to either eliminate or work with the property owner to not have to do them. So again, this is just a formality to move forward with the special assessments for this year.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions, comments? Yes.
Just
Elder Payton.
quick practically, and I've lived a couple other places, how do the special assessments end up to the citizens? In previous where I've lived, they were attached to like water or sewage billing. So how do we do it in Stoughton? Because I haven't had to experience that just yet.
Yeah, so we'll send them an assessment, a preliminary assessment letter, and it'll basically outline all the accessible items on their property. And then that gets recorded, then they'll be basically put on their tax bill. They do have some options to pay based on how much it is. They have, in some instances, up to 10 years to pay for those items.
Yeah, we had previously talked, years ago, talked about adjusting those, but I don't think it got very far. So it might be something to bring up if that's what we want to do. All right, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to number 10, R 2024, Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, this is Resolution 20 of 2024. Resolution amends the 2024 adopted budget for the Emmy Roth solar panels. So moved.
Second.
So motion by Schumacher, second by Reeves.
This one, I'm gonna have Dave comment on this one, just so we'll make sure we get it right. My notes aren't ideal on this one.
Yeah, Director Erlinger is online too, if you need him to explain this as
Yep.
well.
So the council has already approved the debt issue for the $1.8 million net cash. This is simply amending the budget for the $2.3 million. And can everybody see my screen where I've got the Ellers chart on it?
Yes.
Okay. This is basically the numbers provided by Ellers, showing that we're actually going to be issuing a bond for estimated $2.3 million and paying out the various expenses to bring us down to the $1.8 million. So this is kind of just dotting the I's and crossing the T's to make sure that we stay within budget. Technically, if we don't do this, the TIF district is going to be $500,000 under budget within less than 60 days. Or over budget, I should have said. Any questions on the topic?
Cricket's here, Dave. So, no questions? And for all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Dave. The next two items, 11 and 12, are postponed. Item number 13 coming from Public Works. Who's the Public Works? Is that Lisa?
The MISD is not on, is it?
Right, so R 22, 24.
Resolution 20, oh, sorry. Resolution 22 of 2024, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the contract extension with John's Disposal Services, Inc. until December 31st, 2029 for collection of residential garbage bi-weekly, collection of recycling, collection of bulky items, and weekly collection of trash downtown, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Take a pick. Motion by Reeves, let's go. Second by Legaki.
So, I don't know if he's on or not, but we did have a representative from from John's
Yep,
Disposal
Nate's on.
come in. The consensus was at Public Works that they've done a good job for the city. Many people appreciate the bulk pickup. I know that's not available in a lot of communities. The Stoughton residents take advantage of it pretty frequently, so we've been happy with the service at Public Works and recommended the contract extension. And you said the gentleman's on from John's if there's any questions, so.
Yeah, so, Elder Bear or?
Yeah, I'll just add a few things. Thanks, Lisa. So basically, this is to extend the contract that is due to expire at the end of this year, another 5 years to 2029. Like all Reeves said, we've gotten really great service and good feedback from the residents for John's. They're also very competitive. We did do some research on what others are paying, and we are right in, I think it's, yep, there's a document. So the average is $15.25. With John's, it'd be $15.22. So we are right in line with where we should be. So each year per the contracts, they can ask for an increase up to the consumer price index for the Midwest region. And so they've been following that. And we've been very happy with their customer service and how they work with us and our residents, their customers. So Nate Austin is here online from John's. Nate, do you have anything to add?
Not really. We just want to continue working with you and picking up your trash. So, but if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
That's great, thank you. At some point, I'd love to have you give a presentation on your recycling and all that. That'd be great. What happens to our recycling? But that's
be
for
happy to do that.
another day. Brett's just smiling at me.
The paper trail, we've done that. Yeah, we can.
I know.
And Nate, with that presentation, I think we should, Nate and I could probably tag team on that and do that at a future meeting for sure.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there that stuff from recycling just goes into trash, and I just kind of want to get people educated.
Sure.
So anyway, that's a different subject. Anybody else have any comments or questions for Nate? Elder Payton?
Not for Nate. I appreciate your service and glad that we're moving forward to continue with it. I want to clarify, is this a resolution or an ordinance? The top of the sheet says ordinance, but the file number is a resolution. So I just want to be sure in the documentation.
It's a resolution.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there should be a resolution.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'd have that cleaned up when we're
You got that, Candy? That there's
Yes, I'll make that change. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for catching that. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. I have another Public Works, number 14, R23 of 2024. Elder Reeves.
Thank you. Resolution 23 of 2024, endorsing the Wisconsin Department of Transportation recommended modification to the Haltz Road and Jackson Street traffic signal light and intersection configuration, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Elder Schumacher.
So I will probably turn this over to Director Abear, but we had a discussion in Public Works. Those of you who have visited out in the Walmart area around Haltz Road and Jackson Street know that it's a very wonky configuration. That's a technical term. And rather dangerous. So there have been some recommendations and discussion between, I believe, our city and the DOT about future changes when they do some road projects, the road construction. So I will let Director Abear talk to us about that.
Yep. So we've been lobbying the DOT ever since they put in the lights at Jackson Highway 51. Those are DOT controlled. However, they are very confusing for residents and visitors to the community. They are often not, people don't follow the light configuration. So they've offered to make some changes to eliminate that second set of lights to the west of Highway 51 on Jackson Street, and then put a median in. And what that would do, actually, can you scroll down, Dave? I think there's a map. Keep going. That's kind of tough to see, though. So Holtz Road is at the top of your screen, which is north. And so turning onto Jackson would be a right in, right out configuration. So right in on Holtz Road. And then when you come out of Holtz onto Jackson, you'd have to take a right. You can't take a left to go to 51. So that kind of on the turn lane, that'll be a raised median, concrete median, so you cannot go over the top of that and take a left. So it'd be right in, right out. The biggest reason to do that is that you don't want people turning left into that turn lane, because there'll be cars staged at that intersection waiting to turn left. And so the problem would be is that they would be blocking traffic going westbound on Jackson. I did reach out to the car dealerships, and I met with the folks from Jung's. I did get their support. Obviously, they think it's wonky, the technical term. It's just not a smooth intersection. I've also talked with the DOT to let them know that this has to be designed to accommodate for full-size semi-trucks, obviously making deliveries to not only Jung's but also the car dealerships. So they'll make sure that turning movement can accommodate for truck traffic. Any questions on that? Oh, one other thing. This would be happening during the 2026 construction season, as they do this section of Highway 51.
Right, a question, so people that are coming from, anybody that is on Holtz Road, so they have to turn right into like the Walmart parking lot, but if they want to get out, then they have to do a U-turn somewhere?
So they would find their way. So they would either turn into the frontage road at Walmart, where your cursor is, Dave, and then they would take a left and then go by Quick Trip to get back to 51. Or they could go to 138 to the roundabouts. They could also go to Oak Opening, which is the new subdivision to the west, and work their way around. As you know, eventually that will connect to 138 as well. They also did a traffic study in this area. There's not a ton of traffic on Holtz Road. Obviously, it's very seasonal because of Jung's. However, we're talking 30 cars per day, roughly. And that was also taken in October. So talking with Jung's, I made sure that they knew that. Obviously, in April, May, there's a lot more than 30 cars that'll be using that corridor. But they seem very comfortable with that. They're also talking about putting another entrance exit, because they do have access to Highway 51 that's grandfathered in. They were talking about making another road to get to that entry exit that's just to the north a little bit on their property.
Right, because I just imagine that people are going to be making U-turns because they want to get on 51 or continue on Jackson, and now they have to funnel all the way around.
I think maybe we can help with some signage.
Yep. Yeah.
However, keep in mind too that the frontage road for Walmart is not a public right-of-way. That is a frontage road for Walmart. So we have to get creative to not use that as a local detour. We technically can't steer local traffic down a private roadway, but we can get creative with that.
Yeah, I mean, I just see that people are going to do U-turns, so, which is okay if it's only 30 cars a day.
Yeah, I think that's important to acknowledge, is that we're really serving the majority of the cars that are on Jackson Street and not just Holtz Road. Those cars coming out of Holtz Road are going to find their way, in my opinion. We're really trying to serve those that are using the Walmart and all the other stores around that area. and also the new subdivision on Jackson Street.
Yep.
I think Alder Jensen.
Alder Jensen.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Brett, do you know if they plan to retain the no right turn on the traffic heading from the north to the south on 51 at that intersection?
No right turn going with northbound or?
Yeah, no, on the southbound on 51 at that intersection, there's a no right-hand turn on red.
Oh, that all goes away. That all goes away.
All
So
goes away?
That's been
Okay.
That's to the west, goes away. And that becomes really a standard traffic signal configuration.
Okay, good. Yeah, I know.
So yes, it does go away. Yeah.
I'm in and out of that intersection multiple times daily, and it is just a nightmare the way it's set up right now. So I'm all for going with this.
Oh, yeah, because the lights sometimes are not
Oh, it's-
timed,
Yeah.
and you get
Yeah.
caught, and,
You
yeah.
never know if you're on halts coming out, you never know if the people are going to take off or not. It's just a nightmare.
Mhm. I agree, so thank you for trying to find a good solution. Any other questions?
Gina, does Alder Butler have a
But-
hand up?
Alder Butler, thank you for, couldn't see your hand.
Yeah, so similar, President Hirsch, to what you were asking, are we at all concerned about traffic? Exactly the people who are coming off of Holtz wanting to turn left, are we at all concerned about them using Aldi as a workaround?
Yeah, I think you're going to have people that do that. I won't dispute that. Again, I think Aldi, if they choose to, they could put a sign up. I've never seen a sign truly stop a car, but they could certainly, put for customers only or something like that. Again, we're not talking about a huge volume of cars, but if it does become a problem, you can certainly work with them to try to mitigate those issues.
Thank you.
I had one other one, Regina.
Okay. Alder Schumacher.
Brett, on the eastbound for Jackson Street through that intersection, that's going from, I think that splits into 3 lanes, and it's drawn as 2 lanes, is that right?
You go back to the exhibit. So at the eastbound on Jackson, it'd be 1 lane, and then westbound going is 1 lane. Eastbound does split to 2 lanes. So there's a through lane on the right-hand side along with the right-hand turn. Then there'd be a left-hand turn would be a standalone. And that was based on the studies that they had done as far as the turning movements, the amount of cars that do turn or go straight. So that was their recommendation based on the studies.
Got it, thanks.
Any other questions? Comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to number 15. This is not assigned to a committee. I'm gonna ask Attorney Dregney or Attorney Manthe, how best should we kind of put this out, because it's not, do I just announce it, or how best to deal with this one?
I was anticipating that there might be some desire to provide some additional information to the council by STI representatives. I'm not sure. I don't know if they have anything they want to present before we get to the resolution and the agreement.
Yep, this is the Highway 51 one first, the stormwater.
Oh, this
so-
is the DOT one. Sorry, my apologies.
Yep.
Yeah, this didn't go to committee, but I can tell you what it is, and then, yeah, whoever would like to introduce it.
Okay, read it.
Okay.
This is Resolution 24 of 2024, consideration and possible action on agreements with Department of Transportation regarding stormwater management serving Highway 51, and I so move.
Second?
Motion by Reeves, second by Schumacher.
And the only thing I was gonna add before you, talk about it is I'm thinking the resolution that's in the packet might be incomplete. If you actually look at the wording on the resolution, it says, resolution by the Common Council of the City of Stoughton approving an agreement and a memorandum of agreement with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation relating. So I think maybe some of the words got left off at the end, so just a little wordsmithing thing on the resolution.
Yeah, it should say relating to stormwater management. So we'll add that. Candy, can you help me remember? We got to add relating to stormwater management.
Thank you, I've got it.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, the background on this agreement is, there are actually two agreements. As I think you know, the Department of Transportation is planning to do a complete reconstruction of Highway 51 in an area that's adjacent to the proposed STI development. And the Department of Transportation will need stormwater management to address to manage the stormwater impacts of its project. And this agreement will allow for the DOT's stormwater management needs to be met by the STI development. DOT requires an agreement with the city. There are really two agreements that the resolution includes. One is a not limited only to the stormwater management issue, but is an agreement that describes the financial relationship between the city and the DOT as relating to things that the DOT will put in as part of its project that the city will pay for. There's also a line item in there for credit to the city for stormwater management work that will be done as part of the STI project. So, yeah, if you look on this document, you'll see there's a credit to the city for stormwater facilities of $235,300. So that's one agreement, and then there's a memorandum of agreement that indicates that the city anticipates entering into a development agreement with STI, and that agreement will, the development agreement will require STI to design and construct stormwater management facilities that will serve not only its project, but also the DOT project. And so those are the two agreements with the Department of Transportation. It's important to note that we need to have the development agreement completed and signed by both the developer and the city, and effective, meaning all conditions that need to be satisfied in that agreement for it to be effective need to be satisfied by the end of March in order to meet the DOT's timetable here. And that there's an April 1 deadline in this memorandum of agreement that indicates that if the development agreement between the city and the developer are not completed and executed and effective by April 1, then this memorandum of agreement with the Department of Transportation will essentially be null and void, and the DOT will go its own way in terms of developing its own stormwater management facilities to serve its project. And from their perspective, they just feel that they need that amount of time. They need to know that this agreement is in place with the developer to provide for that stormwater management approach by April 1. Otherwise, they feel that they need to get started with the process of designing their own facility and acquiring land for their own facility. And later, when we talk about the development agreement, you'll see that there are provisions in the development agreement that are designed to work in tandem with these agreements with the Department of Transportation. So that is that.
So with that, Attorney Dragney, do we have to, should we discuss the developers agreement first, or do we kind of discuss this and pass it in as a condition that it has to, the developers agreement also has to be approved by April 1, not necessarily tonight, but, by April 1, if there's,
I don't think you need to do that because I've built conditions into both agreements that are such that if, for example, the council approves this resolution and approves these 2 agreements with DOT, and for some reason the development agreement is not approved, then this memorandum of agreement relating to stormwater management facilities will automatically just drop away. Nothing more you need to do. So you can approve this resolution, approve these agreements, knowing that if the development agreement is approved and goes forward and is executed in a timely fashion, then this is in place. If the development agreement for some reason doesn't go forward, you're still okay, because that'll just drop off this DOT agreement.
okay. All right, thank you for the explanation. Does anybody have any questions? I had, I didn't see anybody. On the beginning, the front page, I don't know if you can put that up there, Dave. When it says under A, it kind of lists the things that are included. And one thing that I noticed that wasn't included was the Rutland Dunn underpass. And I guess that's kind of important to the city. So I guess I'd like that included under A in the recitals. You have the replacement of an existing underpass, but you don't have the Rutland Dunn underpass. You have the roundabouts and all that. So I guess I would like to amend this or just note that needs to be added.
So, okay, let's talk about that a little bit, because I basically took this language from the DOT's
Right,
agreement.
but it is in the DOT's.
Is it in the DOT agreement?
Well, it's actually under the summary of costs.
So they've got a line item in there for it?
Yes, it says
Okay.
Rutland Dunn pedestrian underpass and retaining walls is a line, as a line item on table 1.
Okay, so what you're proposing is that recital A be modified to add the pedestrian underpass
At Rutland Dunn,
at Rutland Dunn Road.
yep. What it says is Rutland Dunn pedestrian underpass and retaining walls, but we can just be underpass is fine. Just because that is kind of, besides all the great things with the modification of the road, I know that's something that the city is really looking forward to, and it should be in there as well.
Okay, we can do that. So when the actual motion is made, with respect to the resolution, that change should either be included in the resolution, in the motion offering the resolution, or there could be an amendment after the resolution is on the table.
Okay.
So we can do it either way.
Yeah, so I think I made the motion, so.
Do we have the motion?
Yeah, I
Yep.
think I
Okay.
made the motion, and I think we had a second.
Yep,
so
we had
I
a
would-
second by Schumacher, so I guess I would like to amend the resolution to include the Rutland Dunn underpass, I think it's a pedestrian underpass, into recital A.
Second.
Second by Reeves. Elder Jensen.
I've been just confused by this.
Your mic is in on.
I'm just confused by this because it says replacement of existing pedestrian underpass. We do not have an existing
No,
underpass.
it's on Charles Lane, which is further up on 51. It's not part of Stoughton. This goes up from,
Oh, okay, that one, all right, okay.
yeah, so
No,
this one,
No. Confusion, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I don't know where Charles Lane is either. Is
Yeah.
that up by
Yeah.
McFarland or?
I don't know, we'd need Brett on that one, probably. If
Brett,
he-
do you know where Charles Lane is?
Yeah, it's not White to McFarland. It's pretty much between Stoughton and McFarland. I think it's a small underpass. Basically, it looks like a culvert. I believe that's what they're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
I forget the crossroad that's near it, but it's between Stoughton and McFarland, not White to McFarland though.
If
Is it
it's the
actually a
one-
pedestrian underpass?
Yeah, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's out by the lake.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a
Yeah.
small culvert underpass.
I believe it's by the trailer park out by the lake.
By where?
Yeah.
The trailer park out by the lake.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it goes in cul-de-sac.
You have to army crawl.
You got Army Crawl? All right. Cool. Let's all take a field trip. Yep. The amendment's on the floor.
I
There was a
second
second by Reeves. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment passes. Now back to the resolution. Is there any other questions, comments, amendments on the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now the last thing on the agenda is R25 of 2024. How do we want to handle this, Attorney Dragney? You might.
I'm sorry. If you'd like to address anything, it's up to you. In speaking with Mayor Swadley earlier this week, or I guess last week, I thought he was going to check in with your team and ask if you'd want to present on any of those things. I'll also mention, I don't know if you had some contact with Tim Semin today about your landscaping plan. And so I understand that Tim is ready to provide some background to the council about that. If you all want to address your landscaping plan, including changes that you anticipate, you're welcome to do that as well.
Okay, now would you like to start there, or would you like to let Keith do his presentation first? Is there a preference? I guess we were thinking Keith may want to go first, but...
Yeah, I don't have a preference. Keith's presentation would be on the financial materials, so if the council has a preference.
I guess the financials, I think, come later. I think if you're up and you want to
Sure.
talk, that's fine, and then we can talk about financials too.
Yeah, so we don't, really our intention tonight, we have our team here, so if I don't know an answer, we can defer to any of them. But first, kind of continued thank you for the time and kind of continued review on this from your group. But yeah, our ask now is that kind of what we've presented in the development agreement is what we believe is our best offer. This is what we can do at this point. So if you have questions on the landscape, the sustainability efforts, anything like that, happy to answer. But really that's our intention here tonight. So no formal presentation or anything like that. I want to be available for your questions.
I think there are two questions that I just want to ask. If do you
Sure.
have any additional information, or is there something I missed on either the cost estimate associated with the solar that you want to put in, or the anticipated percentage of your electricity use that would be covered by the solar? I think those were things that I know that we had indicated there were some members of the council who were hoping to get some data on that. I don't know if you have that available.
Yes, some of that data for new construction, we did actually reach out to some resources that that Mayor Swadley recommended. Given time and the new construction aspect, it's formal studies on exactly what the exact energy expectation on savings can be for this office isn't something they can really pull together, but we do have costs. So right now we're thinking for this project, based on market and everything, it'd be approximately $218,400 to $242,400 for the solar. Did I get that right, Danielle? Yeah, you can certainly.
Hi, I'm Danielle Thompson, working as project manager with STI. One of the things that we did look into from looking at the fact that the building has a 80 kilowatt solar array system that can be designed into it. I'll just give you a little background on the solar really quick on what the building itself has in terms of upgrades. So the building has a roof structure that was designed for solar panels, and the capacity will accommodate the installation of those panels, and it can hold up to 246 panels for this 80 kilowatt system. The building itself was designed to handle this system. The electrical systems were upsized to accommodate the additional electric generation. The electrical rooms were oversized and planned in order to accommodate inverters and other infrastructure that would be required to support the rooftop solar array. And then we do know that the size of the system, if you look into a commercial versus a house, it's about 10 times the size of a standard home size that can handle the capacity of this array. We do know that the 80 kilowatt system will handle actually will produce, I guess the numbers are 20% of the building's average annual energy consumption will be offset or recovered by the solar panels over the course of the year. So our architects had gone through their systems and they were able to say, we look at a baseline system of energy usage of a 15 kilowatt per square foot for a medium-sized office building. In this case, they looked at 50,000 square feet. They went through and did the calculations, and then they ran it through this PV watt calculator. And so we've communicated with other solar companies, and these solar companies do something similar, only ours is looking at what does it look like for a year in terms of energy consumption, and a solar company will look at it based on an hour-by-hour basis. So we can get a general idea of what a full system will look like on the rooftop in terms of that energy consumption, and then we can look at how that is going to be done, how big of a system. Like I said, it can hold 246 panels. We don't know that that's exactly how many you put on at the time. What in talking with the various solar companies, they would come in and they'd like to look at some of the data, base building data, and then accommodate that with solar panels to support whatever system they think is appropriate, but the building is designed to have an 80 kilowatt system. So we're prepared to meet with them and have a formal analysis done of what they would look at, because then they can have access to Strang's systems. They can look at how the building was designed internally, and they can see if their numbers support what Strang is identifying as the best system for this building.
Thank you. Other questions for STI on the solar panels? So you're saying that it would be offset about 20% of your average use?
Mm-hmm. They said it's slightly less than 20% of the average annual energy consumption will be offset or recovered by the solar panels over the course of the year. So that's based on the system that they're looking. Like I said, they didn't go hour by hour, but based on what they designed, that's what their numbers are showing.
Not okay.
Mm-hmm.
On the other question, I think things that were talked about in council was the bird-friendly glass, and I'm curious of why you're only going to install it by the lobby, which is interesting.
So in looking, and again, we talked with Strang about this, and this isn't, only Madison has an ordinance that covers this, and it really isn't a set. I would say that they have a lot of things that you can consider to install in a building that would be bird friendly. So it could be a particular glass, it could be a shading, a glazing, and iron fixtures, some different things that you can do that actually can accommodate this. In this circumstance, we're looking at some glass. So what Strang did is they did an evaluation of the building, and because of how the building's designed, it's more narrow in the center by the lobby, and it has floor to ceiling windows, which is the only space in the building that it does it, and it's the most narrow. So when they were looking at it, they identified that as a place where it is the most likely possibility that there would be maybe some bird situations, or based on their evaluation. So they looked at it and they said that they looked at the passage effect. So it's a critical area because they looked at passage effect. The narrow indoor areas with glazing on both sides may be interpreted as a fly-through area for birds. It has large expanses of glazing, so 2-story tall, uninterrupted glazing through the lobby that may be difficult for birds to recognize as a solid wall. And it has reflections of landscaping and planting. So the large expanses of glazing will provide large uninterrupted reflections of the surrounding park and landscape in certain daylight situations. So from looking at that, they said that was where they would recommend would be the best area. Now, I also would say that they are in Madison, and they have only designed 2 buildings that actually have it, of any building that they've designed. So I would say that it's very uncommon. It's not in any other community. There's not any standards that we can really follow to say what would be a best practice, but in their analysis and what they've been evaluating because of working in Madison, they came up with this as their best practice on this building based on that area of the see-through floor-to-ceiling glass.
I was just curious, because that glass also has a roof leading into it. I guess I was kind of curious of how that came about when the other side of the building is going to be by the swales and the habitat and all that, and those windows are also very large, so I'm kind of curious of how that came about.
And then I think it's important to know too that they had supported this analysis and looking at, they didn't just look at the glass, they also looked at the surrounding building. What does the parking lot have? What is around the building itself? And they said additional items that were incorporated in the design are in line with the American Bird Conservancy bird-friendly recommendations, which include the following. The outside lighting is appropriately shielded and directed to minimize attraction to night migrating or nocturnal birds. Interior lighting will be controlled by occupancy sensors and automated building control systems to be turned off at night if not in use. And landscaping is designed without features known to increase collisions. So in addition to that, I think looking beyond just the glass, I think we can consider both the landscape around that. They've considered lighting, different elements outside of just the building, and then had identified that as the area that they felt was most critical. And so that's where we landed on that. No pun intended.
Thank you for the explanation.
Did you have costs on that you shared? I
Yes.
didn't catch that.
So the costs for this are, I guess they go up to $86 a square foot for this type of glass. So it added about a $40,000 cost onto the standard glazing that would be on that window. So it'd go from about $68 a square foot to $86. So that differentiation times 2,100 square feet will equal about the $40,000. Yes. And just if you wanted to, I mean, while I'm talking about some of the landscaping, I can address what Tim was talking about earlier too. When the landscaping was designed for the project, it was designed far in excess of what the landscaping point requirements are. There were some modifications slightly on the side of the drive, but it should be noted that 1,600 is the point requirement, and we still far exceed that at 1,900. So there's significantly more trees, landscaping that are part of the project. So even though there are some minor changes to the parking, which are going to be addressed at Plan Commission, I think it should be noted that there is a significant excess of landscaping point satisfied still within our plan.
I have a question on the sustainability piece, if I'm allowed to talk. So I'm just looking at the sustainability presentation that the architect gave back in January. So just on some of the materials, because I know we've had some back and forth on that. So on slide 11 here, it says that no red list materials will be used in the interior finishes. There will be cradle-to-cradle silver certified for soft flooring materials, and fitness flooring is cradle-to-cradle bronze. Is that still in the plans to meet those benchmarks?
Yes.
Okay.
So can we put that in the resolution, just so that we understand what those?
So I think, and that's fine if we want to talk, however you feel comfortable describing the red list. Again, there really isn't a set way of describing those. Those are some building standards that a lot of architects try to exceed, and it's to prevent hazardous substances to be included in a building. So I can look at.
Yeah, there's just a note here that says like the declare label is a platform to identify red list free products. I guess I'm not familiar with the declare label, but if that's, I guess, a standard that we could apply.
So I would be comfortable working from here if you're looking for, are you suggesting that all soft flooring materials are cradle to cradle silver certified? Are you suggesting referencing that, or?
Potentially, we have to have our conversation, I guess, in closed session, but we just wanted to, I just wanted to make sure if that's still STI's or Stoughton Trailers' intent to meet these certifications.
So when Strang gave this presentation, what they gave outside of the bird glass was consistent with what we tried to do our best to define and identify more clearly in the development agreement. So what's in here, they worked from our building to incorporate that list. So we'd be happy to talk about how you want to, if there's a clarity you want to put in or something you want to suggest, we'd be happy to consider that.
I just put up your slide that you had
Yeah.
given them.
Yep.
So keep online. Any other questions for SDI? Oh, Elder Payton.
I don't have a question as much as I just want to say this has been a long process getting to this point, and I just appreciate your work too. I know you've stated that we take our time looking through things and speaking from the city's perspective, but we appreciate you working with us and also looking at the things that we've all collectively spoken about. So thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Thank you for coming again tonight and answering questions.
There's more questions after Keith.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So I guess before we go into closed session, if Keith wants to give your presentation, and then we can consider, is that a good way to go?
Yeah, what I would say is Keith can present in open session the information that he believes is appropriate for open session, and if there's anything that he believes should be in closed session, he can make that call himself. I'm not exactly sure what he's planning to present, honestly.
You ready to go, Keith? Are you okay with that?
Yep, I'm okay. Everything that I put in the presentation's okay to be shared in the open session.
Okay, thank you.
So good evening. My name's Keith Dahl, Municipal Advisor at Ellers, the city's financial consultant. We were brought in to take a look at the project's financials to understand the pro forma analysis, understand what the true need of assistance is. Whenever a city or any public entity is asked for some level of public assistance, we want to make sure that the developer who is ultimately receiving that public assistance at the end of the day isn't unduly enriched. So we ultimately take a look at the development budget, specifically the sources and uses. We also take a look at the cash flow and the operating statement with looking at the potential revenues that they're going to receive and the potential expenses. So with that, we can go to the next slide and just give a general overview of what I'm going to talk about in open session here today. We're going to talk about total development costs, where we are today, based on the latest costs that Ellers received from STI in mid-February. We're going to talk about return on investment, not only with phase 1, phase 2, but overall. And we're going to also touch on the infrastructure costs that have been necessitated by US Highway 51, in addition to what the state is doing with the state-led project as well. This is a carryover from the last conversation that we had about it in the last presentation that I gave back in, I believe it was November or December of last year, but I still wanted to touch on it for the benefit of the conversation this evening. We're also talk about the TID cash flow and then ultimately the MRO notes that we have as far as our current recommendation. So with that, we can start with total development costs. I have broken this out into several categories. First, we have soft costs and hard costs. Hard costs are the specific construction costs of the development. specifically getting the sites pad ready for construction. We're looking at streets, but we're also looking at all the utility construction. And then I also broke it out by each column with phase 1, phase 2, and then provided a total. So based on where we were previously with the cost estimates back in November, phase 1 cost estimates did increase by about $1.5 million. However, I do want to mention that phase 2 costs have reduced by about $1 million. So the overall cost for this project has only increased about $500,000. And this is a result due partly to fill additional import materials that had to be brought into the site, but also the sewer design, the superior sewer design that the utilities department was requiring of STI to install for the overall development. So that's the total development costs. Total development costs are slightly under $35 million. And then Dave, we can go to the next slide when you're ready. The next one that I want to talk about is return on investment, because like I said at the beginning of the presentation, we want to make sure that we're reviewing the developer's financials and comparing this against other projects that are ultimately receiving public assistance. When it comes to a land development developer, they're looking at specifically two things: an internal rate of return, which you're measuring your profitability, taking into account the time value of money. Generally, developers will want to be anywhere between 11 to 16%, and it ultimately comes down to, on that range, the type of development that's being constructed and their investors at the end of the day. But that's a general range. The next return on investment metric that developers typically take a look at is an equity multiple, and it essentially measures that the developer is getting cash back based on the equity that they invested into the project. And generally, a land developer is going to want to be anywhere from 2x to 3x. If a developer is below 1x, that means they are losing money on the deal. If they're at a 2x, that means they're doubling their money, and then 3x means they're tripling their initial equity investment. Let's go to the next slide. So now as we take a look at the return on investment metrics for each individual phase and then look at it as an overall development, we can see that due to the increased costs of phase 1 and the lower amount of lot sales revenue, because we're just looking at the headquarters specifically and a handful of single family home lots, that sales revenue that they're receiving on the lots is not enough to cover the initial upfront infrastructure costs that have to be created. So their IRR is below 2%, which their equity multiple is also below 1, which means in theory they are losing money. Granted, we also want to take a look at phase 2, look at the overall project to see what the returns are. I did break it out for what phase 2 returns look like. And then the total returns, with the internal rate of return being 13.15% and their equity mall being slightly over 2. If we look at a land developer in another city, these would be the benchmarks that they would want to hit to move forward. So that's how we approached it. And this also, that first top part of the slide, assumes that 90% of the annually available tax increment is provided to the development, both for phase 1 and 2. Now, there is another conversation component to this development overall, and I can let Rick and Matt talk about this later on, specifically with the sustainability piece, with the bird glass and the solar panels. STI has requested on phase 1 that 95% of the annually available tax increment be provided. And for reference and contextual purposes, I wanted to provide what those rates of return would be as well. Given that phase 1 has a smaller amount of the equalized value, the total development cost after the project is said and done and constructed and everything is fully assessed, it's a slight increase to the returns overall, but they're still relatively within the norms that we expect. So from our perspective, these are reasonable return on investments. based on the tax increment that we're talking about being provided to this project, not upfront, but on a pay-go basis, pay-as-you-go basis, meaning the developer is ultimately taking all the risk with this. The city is not issuing any debt to provide these funds to the development as an incentive. It is future revenue that the city is ultimately obligating of itself to pay to the developer over time. We can go to the next slide when ready. Now, as we look to the infrastructure costs, because these do play into the overall TID cash flow, I do want to touch on this. And because US Highway 51 splits two developments, we have STI's development, but also Dvorak's development in TID number 9 that's currently under construction. We wanted to know what the total costs of those Highway 51 improvements would be. And so the total cost is going to be slightly under $2 million based on what the state has provided for estimates as far as what the city is looking to do for improvements to Highway 51. And we did take a look at a few pieces of information to determine how we're going to break these costs out. We did take a look at each development's future equalized value. And then we also took a look at frontage of road along US 51. Ultimately, that breakdown led to the cost amount allocable to Dvorak being $716,320, and then to STI's development being the $1,276,000. Now, these are costs for construction, but the city is ultimately going to have to provide these funds as the project is moved forward, as the project moves forward with the state-led project, as you start to receive invoices from the state to pay for costs of construction. So you're ultimately going to have to issue some level of debt. And so while these are the construction costs, we do also need to factor in costs of issuance as well, and we can get into that a little bit later. We can go to the next slide when ready. So this is the overall TID cash flow. This takes into account all of the tax increment that's potentially generated to be created within the TID. We also have the debt proceeds there specifically for STI's development. Because Dvorak is in a separate TID, we would look at that separately. So this TID cash flow only looks at STI's portion of the US Highway 51 improvements. This also looks at their municipal revenue note obligation based on 90% of the annually available tax increment to both phase and 1 with a 5% interest rate. We also want to take into account the time value of money when we're talking about an MRO note because it's pay as you go. It takes into account $1 today is not going to be $1 in the future if you want it for upfront costs of construction. So we take into account some level of interest. And so what you see in front of you is a phase 1 MRO note of a little over $3.5 million for a principal amount. And then interest would be on top of that based on 5%. And if you follow that column all the way down, you can see what that future value sum is, which is slightly under $5.84 million. Now, this also takes into account phase 2 as well, which on the screen with the MRO note for phase 2, the column, it shows a principal amount of $18,910,000 with that future value being slightly under $32.1 million. And then the cash flow also shows the taxable GO bond that the city would issue. That is ultimately going to be secured by the tax increment of the TID to be able to make those annual debt service payments. Now, there's a few things to keep in mind with this slide. If you look at the final column on the right side, the balances, specifically the cumulative column, you go all the way down to year 2045 and it shows a cumulative positive balance of $1.5 million. We want to see this above zero, and there's several reasons for that. There's a lot of development being considered here within this TID, and currently the tax increment being shown is as projected based on the phasing of the development. If Phase 1, any part of Phase 1 is delayed, but more specifically, if any part of Phase 2 is delayed, as far as construction and sale for the building to ultimately be assessed and valued for tax purposes, this amount is going to go down because that value is going to get pushed further and further down, and you're going to have less years to collect annual tax increment. So we want this balance to be positive for delays and potential development, but we also want to take into account any rate reduction that the city might have. In theory, when we create value in a city, the overall tax rate can go down because now the budget of the city, you only have to levy so much across the constituents and the existing properties within the city. So as your value increases, overall your tax rate in theory should go down. Now that doesn't guarantee that property taxes are going to go down. It just means the overall tax rate will go down. But that's a function of how you calculate tax increment. And so we want to take that into account as well when we're looking at a TID cash flow for conservative purposes on the front end. But as you can see, if everything is developed as planned, if we provide 90% of the annually available tax increment to STI for this development, and with the share cost of STI related specifically to the US Highway 51 improvements, and we have administrative costs retained by the city for annual reporting and other various needs, we end with a positive balance. That is a good point in our side. So next slide, please. Now, this breaks it out in larger text as far as the MRO notes that we're talking about, specifically with Phase 1 and Phase 2, and what we're looking at for the potential principal amounts. I do want to make clear that these amounts do not reflect what the city and STI has been talking about with the sustainability components related to the bird glass and solar panels. So that is another part of the conversation that needs to happen. But I just wanted to be upfront that these are based on 90% of the annually available tax increment. Now, the last slide that I have here just breaks down specifically Phase 1 as far as what the MRO notes amounts would be based on a percentage of annually available tax increment going from 90% up to 95%. I do want to mention that there is one small typo on this. With a specific percentage of 94% in the column for future value, that 3 should be a 6. So instead of 3,999,000, that should be 6,999,000. But you can see how much the future value increases as you increase that percent of annually available tax increment going specifically to Phase 1. When we go from 90% to 91%, that increases the future value sum by about $60,000. That present value amount, that principal amount, is only increasing by about $40,000. So with that, I can pause here for any questions that the council has for me, or I can also turn it over to Rick and Matt, and they can talk about the sustainability features that they've been in negotiations with STI. Or we can save that for closed session as well.
Well, I just want to talk about the bird glass and the solar, just because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and make sure we're all on the same page. So as I understand it, the cost of the solar and bird glass items, those are not costs that you've included in your analysis of the financials associated with the project, and the MRO, the municipal revenue obligations, are not intended to pay or contribute anything towards those costs. The developer has requested in their most recent draft of the agreement that the city would provide funding for those two items. With respect to the solar, the developer has requested that the city would reimburse the developer for the cost of those solar panels up to a maximum amount of $242,400. and would reimburse the developer for the cost of the bird-safe glass in an amount up to $36,393. So those payments would be in addition to the municipal revenue obligation payments, and those would be costs that this city would have to contribute to from some other source. We don't have a source of funds identified to pay those costs at this point. And those would, the bird-safe glass would be presumably shortly after the building is completed and they can demonstrate the cost. And then the solar, they have up to 5 years to put that in. So whenever they do it and they demonstrate they've done it and show the costs, then that payment would need to be made. At least that's what they're proposing. So Keith, is that consistent with your understanding in terms of how you've analyzed the numbers?
Correct. I approached the numbers as if it was a land development analysis, so I didn't factor in the cost to construct the headquarters and all of the necessary accessory information that goes along with that. So that includes the bird glass and the solar panels.
Any other questions for Keith before we move to closed session? Keith, I just have one question for you because I didn't see anybody else's hands go up. What is the total built-out kind of tax that we're looking at? I mean, when everything is built, what are we thinking that the value of the total built-out that you're basing all your calculations on?
Yep, great question. Dave, if you can pull up, I believe it's 16B. And then it would be on the first page. So this is first page, yep. So this would be the equalized value estimated for the entire development. And these have been reviewed by the assessor to determine that they are appropriate based on the current market environment. But in total, the equalized value will be increased by about 152 million. Now, if you look at just what phase one would do, it's going to be around 20 million. So much of the value, much of that equalized value is going to come in phase two at a later date.
Thank you. I was looking for those numbers, but I couldn't find them.
I provided a lot of numbers in the packet, so I totally understand.
Any other questions? STI, you had a comment?
Thank you, Madam President. Before you wanted to go into closed session, we wanted to... There you go. You'd think I'd follow the giant sign on the thing. There were just a couple things we wanted to emphasize to the council before you go into closed session. Number one is the excitement we have for the project. It's been a long, torturous process for us and for city staff. God knows we've driven your staff and your mayor crazy. We are truly excited about this project and truly do believe it will be a world-class headquarters and a wonderful facility and development for the city. There's two things I need to emphasize, though. One is we are, in all sincerity, out of time. STI needs an answer tonight. We have a lot of hard deadlines we're up against now, and the decision just cannot be kicked farther down the road. So we intend to stay here tonight when you all go into closed session. If there's any questions you have that come up in closed session, if you want to send staff or somebody out, we'd be happy to answer those questions. If there's some type of language issue that you have, we will be here to discuss it because we truly do need to get an answer tonight. The other second thing I need to emphasize for the council is on the financial side of it. Phase one needs to be a 95% MRO and phase two a 90%. That's just something that will only work on us, for us on the financial side. So I don't I don't mean it to be blunt or overly direct, but I do need to sincerely just state STI's position so that there's no ambiguity tonight. We're here to answer any questions you might have before you go into closed session. I didn't want to hold things up, but I did want to just emphasize the things that are important and needed to be addressed tonight.
Thank you very much. There other comments or?
Nothing unique to that, really. It's, you know, we've talked about the deadlines, and again, like you said, it's not intended to be overly direct or blunt by any means, but we are at the deadline now. You know, we've met with the mayor, we've met with staff. You know, I think the first time we presented to you was over a month ago now on some of this information, and we shared at that time kind of where our deadlines were. This is the deadline for us. So again, I've said this before, I'll probably say it again, we respect the magnitude of the decision, this project. We do believe it's going to be great. I'm positive it's going to be great for the city. But no action tonight is a no for us just because of the costs and ramifications on our end. We've kind of tried to hold things and schedule together as best as possible, but it won't be able to be held after this. But just want to kind of make that clear, and again, we'll be around, so if you have further questions after discussion, please feel free.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In that, Dave, is there somebody here that would like to read the closed session verbiage? If you're in agreement to go into closed session at this time? Do you want to? Yeah.
Oh, I got it. All right. The Common Council may, whoop. Yeah, let me look at the paper. Common Council may convene in closed session per state statute 19.85 parent 1 parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Common Council may reconvene in open session to discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in the closed session, and I so move.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Elder Payton, and I think this has to go by roll call. So Candy, can you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Hiley.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Hirsch.
Aye.
Reeves.
Aye.
Butler.
Aye.
Caravello.
Aye.
Lagaki.
Aye.
Wozniak Scanlon.
She said aye. She's
Thank you.
walking in.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, that was it?
Sorry, that was 10 alders in favor. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, as we move into closed session, anybody that's not part of city council will need to log off, or, you know, the,
Let's do that, and then I'm going to offer a suggestion as to how we proceed.
let's make, somebody want to make a motion to go into open session?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Wozniak can have it.
Motion by Wozniak Scanlon, second by Reeves. I think we can just do a vote, or do we have to do a roll call?
This does not have to be roll call to go back
Okay.
in.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
So here's my suggestion. We have shared with the STI team what the council developed during its closed session discussion. Council has invited you all to provide whatever reaction you'd like to provide to what it's proposing. And I know Bill had at least one question. If there are questions that we can answer, we'll try and do that. If you're not satisfied, or if some of what the council has proposed is not acceptable to you, we'll hear that in your presentation. I don't know that the council has any appetite to negotiate in open session or to reconvene in closed session. I guess what I would suggest is that they hear from you, and if you're not satisfied, or if you want to change something, if you want to propose something different, you can tell us that. And then I'm going to ask the council whether they want to either attempt to negotiate with you live, or if they want to go back into closed session, or if they want to adjourn. And we'll see where we go.
Thank you. Got to put your mic on.
Got it.
There you go.
Thank you. We do have, Matt sent us, we don't have a red line. I have like a one-page summary of, I think, the city's position.
Did you send it to me? No.
Okay, let me send it again.
You guys send it to the.
You guys can get it again.
You gotta send it to the SBC Global.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, that's perfect. Okay.
We're not picking this up online.
Sorry, we're going to put the document on the screen. We're just going to walk through it and make sure that everybody is on the same page, that we're looking at the same thing. We're going to give STI's attorney, Bill Cola, an opportunity to ask questions. If he needs clarification, we can try and answer those. Then once we've done that, so we all know we're talking about the same thing, then we'll hear what STI wants to tell us about what the council has proposed.
Not coming through
It's
yet.
not coming through? Okay, let me just see if it's, I'm having a, that screen doesn't look normal. What the heck is going on? Can you pull it up on Perfect Law, Rick? Didn't go yet, so I'm going to close out and maybe that'll see if that'll sound. Okay, Rick, it's going to go. It just needs, it's in the process.
I was thinking.
It's in the queue to go out. Now you should have it now, or it says it's gone. Can you see a screen, Bill, well enough to? I can operate off of my. Okay. If you need any help with seeing anything. Or you want me to let me bring my laptop over? That helps you.
Don't worry about it, Matt. Honestly, this will work fine.
That'll work okay?
Yeah, it'll work
Okay.
fine. First off, we want to sincerely thank the whole council. I know it's been a long night for everybody. You've clearly given this a lot of thought, and however this ends up tonight, we want to thank you, because it's truly a thought has gone into it on your end, and that's obvious, and we appreciate that, however this turns out. On the outline, I think basically I have 2 questions and 1 issue that will be a problem. The rest of it should not be a problem at all, so we should be able to get at least to the heart of the matter real quickly. Firstly, on the MRO amounts, the Phase 1 and the Phase 2 amounts, that's what we requested. That's obviously not a problem. We thank the city on that behalf. The solar, if we understand it correctly, within 5 years, we'll install an 80 kilowatt system, and as initially proposed, that we would certify that and the costs to the city. The change, as we understand it, is that you are proposing that if, for whatever reason, we do not construct it within 5 years, one or both of the MROs are reduced by a total of $500,000. That effectively a $500,000 penalty for failing to put the solar up. If I'm wrong in that interpretation, please let me know, but that's kind of how we're reading it.
That is correct, and the city is not increasing the MRO to help fund it.
That
So
was my follow-up question.
deleted the funding for it and added the $500,000 cost if
So-
you don't do it.
So then, the initial language was that the city would reimburse the STI for the increased costs up to a maximum of $242. Yet you're saying now the city would not increase it at all, not whatever the solar costs are.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think part of their discussion was they went up to 95% on the MRO, and they felt that that was sufficient.
Understood. Okay. Yeah, rather than, obviously, I'm not the decision maker on any of
Right.
these, so let me just go through them.
Yep.
We can get the questions answered and
Yep.
then sort of get to the meat of the issue.
Yep.
Sustainability, number 1, A and B, I believe is our language. I don't see any problem in that at all. C, I believe you've added language saying developer will not use any vinyl flooring. We're in agreement with that. There was initially going to be some vinyl in, I want to say, a storage room or a copy room. That's now been redesigned, so there won't be any vinyl in the headquarters at all. So that's not a problem at all. Interior finishes shall contain recycled content and meet industry standard sustainability benchmarks. That is the language that was in the draft that was proposed. That language is fine. We just want to make sure there's not a misunderstanding of expectations there, because we do intend to use recycled content to the extent reasonably feasible. The intent is not that 100% of the interior finishes would be recycled. We don't mean to contractually commit to 100%, but we do intend to commit to utilizing recycled, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I understand. Here's my concern, Bill. I mean, your language, this is your language.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have an architect certify when the building is done that you've met this requirement.
Right.
I'm not sure what this means. I hope you've verified with your architect that they're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, we verified that some of the components will be recycled and will meet industry standard benchmarks. So by
Well, I mean, the language is what it is.
Mhm.
The language right now, and this is your language.
And so there will be interior finishes that do contain, yes, that would be satisfied.
It's just, You just got to be comfortable that your architect is going to be willing to put his license on the line, I guess. And
Well, and we are. We've had very specific discussions with that. Our intent is, under our reading of this contract, he needs to certify that some interior finishers contain recycled content and meet industry standards. I just want to be clear with the city that the intent is not 100% of it will
And I think we recognize that, and the council decided not to, frankly, I mean, we're not sure what that means. You could get away with a very little bit of recycled content, and that's why we were in here for as long as we were. And they said we're not, they weren't going to push you harder on that.
Okay. I think, as you heard, they're going to make an effort to, I think they want, the Stoughton sort of nostalgia on there. But I think we're on the same sheet of music on that. The next two are the Cradle to Cradle silver and bronze for the flooring materials and the fitness flooring, respectfully. We understand those provisions were not in the initial draft. You took them from the architect's presentation that does accurately say what our architect purported, so we're in agreement with that as well. And we have no problem, Matt, with you inserting that as well in the development agreement. Okay. Which gets us to the last part, which is the bird glass. That is just, to be frank, just not workable for us. I don't know how familiar you are with the Madison ordinance. Presumably you are. The problem we have is a lot of ways, but it doesn't speak in terms of bird-safe glass. It speaks in terms of bird mitigation applications and that sort of thing. It could have nothing to do with glass. You can hang string in front of the windows, have grates, all that sort of stuff. We are concerned, obviously, about the aesthetics of the building. We're also concerned about the cost. Our intent was to use glass because we think that is the least intrusive visually and architecturally that still accomplishes the goal of mitigating unnecessary bird deaths. The Madison ordinance calls for 85%. With a string of exceptions that may or may not apply. We haven't really had an ability to analyze whether those exceptions would apply or how they would apply to the building. But we just can't, in all, I guess, honesty, say to you that we can do 85% in the building. We just can't. And not to put too, I guess, directive a point on it, but it's just expensive. And we don't mean to minimize the city's concern with respect to this. We totally agree and want to incorporate bird-safe methodologies, but it is just a lot of cost, and it's the architectural impact to the building. So with that one, STI's position is respectfully, we are unable to meet that one. And if that means a no vote for some of the alders, we're prepared to accept that and we'll move on. But the rest of the are fine. I'll look to my team on the solar. They're effectively reducing the MRO $242,000 or up to $242,000. Yeah. So we are in agreement with that. So at the end of the day, we're in agreement with everything in Matt's list with the exception of the bird glass. And we'd be happy to explain that more. We do know it's important to the council, but that's one where, in all honesty, we just cannot accommodate it. Thank you. That's all I have.
Can you explain why you can't accommodate that a little bit more?
I guess cannot accommodate is probably a misnomer. Obviously, with enough time, money, and anything can be accommodated. The concern is the architectural impact to the building and the cost. We believe we're making a good faith effort to incorporate bird-safe methodologies in the portion of the building that at least our folks tell us are the portions that are most likely to impact, result in bird mortality.
Here's the letter. Want to read that? The various effects we've taken in designing this building to address bird safety and why we think that the solution we've got.
Thanks, John. If you don't mind, it's a short letter. I think, and I'll be happy to pass it along too, but it does, I guess, show the efforts that STI has gone to. It's from Strang, the architects. Dear STI Building Committee, according to the guidelines outlined by the American Bird Conservancy Bird-Friendly Building Design Guide, we've identified the lobby of the new Stoughton Trailers headquarters as the most critical area of concern for bird strikes due to the following factors. One, the quote, passage effect, end quote. Narrow indoor areas with glazing on both sides may be interpreted as a fly-through area for birds. Number two, large expanses of glazing, 2-story tall, uninterrupted glazing through the lobby is difficult for birds to recognize as well. And number three, reflections of landscape planting. The aforementioned large expanses of glazing will provide large, uninterrupted reflections of the surrounding park and landscape in certain daylight situations. Due to these factors, we propose providing a pyrolytic UV-coated bird-safe glass with a 2x2 dot pattern for all lobby glazing on this building. This increases birds' ability to see and recognize the glass surface as a solid, impassable surface. In addition to these areas of bird-safe glass, we have also incorporated the following site and building design strategies in line with the American Bird Conservancy's bird-friendly recommendations. One, outside lighting is appropriately shielded and directed to minimize attraction to night migrating or nocturnal birds. Two, interior lighting will be controlled by occupancy sensors and automated building control systems to turn off at night if not in use. And number three, landscaping is designed without features known to increase collisions. We feel, that being Strang, that the combination of these efforts will contribute significantly toward bird-friendly development for both Stoughton Trailers and the community. And then it's signed by Drew Martin, one of the architects. And I can pass this along. So I know that doesn't directly answer the question, but hopefully it does convey to the city that thought and effort and energy did go into this on STI's thought. This was not we didn't just make an insincere effort with regard to the bird safety and the design of the building.
So I think the council has a number of options available. You could, I have revised the resolution that was in the packet to provide for approving the agreement with the changes that you discussed in closed session. You could vote on that. That includes everything that you talked about, including the bird safe glass that you've just heard them respond to. You could choose to go back into closed session and have some further discussion. You could choose to adjourn. You could choose to have a discussion in open session. I guess those are all available options.
Could I ask a quick question to the STI group just to make sure that we understand the bird safe glass piece? We included in there the option to help subsidize some of that cost with MRO up to 50%, or 50% up to $150,000. So that also, considering it, is not is a no-go.
You're absolutely right. The city to its credit, agreed to contribute up to $150,000. The issue for us is it's obviously at a 50. Every dollar the city is putting in, we're putting a dollar into, and at the square footage for the entire building, it's just not in the budget for STI.
Just wanted to make sure it was clear. Okay, cool.
Could I just ask a follow-up question? Did you get an estimate for bird glass for the entire building? And if so, do you have that information to share?
We can't hear you.
I believe we looked at square footage costs, but never totaled it, right? No, okay. I guess the answer to the question is no, ma'am.
So to be clear, you sounds like it's cost prohibitive, but you don't have the final cost. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Okay.
That's fair, yes.
All right.
Anybody online have any questions or thoughts?
I do, Regina.
Okay, go ahead.
He used the term, the attorney for STI used the term that it would be not architecturally feasible in their plans, the bird glass and other areas except for the lobby. Did I understand that? Did I understand that that is what you said? And can you please say more about, if that is correct, why the bird glass in other areas is not going to be amenable with your?
Yeah, if I said not architecturally feasible, I misspoke. It's clearly feasible. It's possible to use all kinds of methodologies. What I was trying to express was it in our view, would defeat the architectural style that STI and its architects are going for. And what I mean by that is use of the other methodologies that are allowed in the Madison ordinance, such as, grading, other type of barriers in front of the window, that sort of thing. That's what I was trying to convey. Yeah, go ahead.
So just another thing to add here, and none of this is intended to, everything he said, I'm in complete agreement with. This doesn't diminish any of that, but there's another factor in it. It might be softer. You guys may think it sounds silly, but our current office building has 5 windows. 3 of them are in individuals' offices. 1 is in a hallway, 1's in our main lobby. So the unanimous feedback when we got all of the kind of surveys done with our staff, the things that were most important to them, windows was the top of the list across the board. So we're passionate about it. It might sound silly, but this is what it looks like. We don't love what it looks like. We're willing to work with you on the areas that our architect pointed out are highest risk. And if it becomes a problem at any point, we're not just going to ignore if there are bird impacts happening on the building. We'll do something about it, but it would be more in line with what Bill has outlined. It just wouldn't be this in every piece of the building. So I want to provide that piece too. It's not necessarily cost exclusively. It's our preference and certainly what's important to our employees too.
Can you hand the glass around? See it?
Yeah, of course.
Can I ask one clarifying question just on where the bird glass would be located? Just to make sure everybody's on the same page. The bird glass proposed is at the lobby entrance. Is it on the back side of that lobby entrance where that additional glass wall was, or is it just on one side?
Correct. No, it's intended to be both sides to serve that kind of pass-through view.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, both sides.
I think I really appreciate hearing that piece. We definitely understand how much sunlight contributes to wellness. It can contribute to a lot of other things with work culture. I think all of us have enjoyed the last couple of days and being able to like go outside in the middle of winter. That's its own separate point and issue, but there we are. I think our perspective coming from the conversation on the bird glass is the concern of where the building is situated in the ecological environment that's being created with the stormwater and the retention, birds that already migrate and live on that property, and the maybe more than average likelihood of impact that could happen without mitigation efforts. And the bird glass, when we were discussing it, it pictured there is maybe not as big an aesthetic issue, but clearly that is a concern that you have with the design. And we're balancing the needs of what we want for, like what we want in the community, what you want for the community and want for your employees, and also what we need to care about our environment and the ecology. So I think that's where we kind of came to our point of trying to find a standard that we could utilize to help create a benchmark, to help meet the need for our community in Stoughton with our species who are around us and how we try to treat our environment. So I do appreciate hearing you are caring about what happens now in the next few years and then wanting to take steps if it becomes a larger issue. I think we appreciate hearing that and want to see if that does become a problem, we do want to see something happen with it because we care about our birds and our native species.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
A question actually for two people on council who I believe work in buildings that have the glass. Have you found it, Brett, Alderperson Schumacher and Alderperson Butler, I'm interested to hear if you found it to be distracting, unattractive. What are your thoughts, people who work in those buildings?
I can go, Brett, if
Yeah,
you don't mind. My concern is more the opposite. I've worked in a building with glass, and it was not full pane, floor to ceiling. It was standard glass that did not have the bird safe, and it was a daily occurrence of birds hitting the glass and being stunned. It caused some of my direct reports concern because the birds would either seem dead, be flopping on the ground. It was a daily interruption to our normal work. And so in essence, bringing it up is for the benefit of your employees, to be very honest. In terms of the glass that's in our newest building that we built, that was a decision that we made internally for the benefit of both our employees and the environment. And it is the UV, so like the top end, and you don't notice it because we don't see it. We don't see in UV.
Add to that, the buildings that I work in are all located within prairies or within restored prairies, as well as in woodland. One of the buildings, it's a fairly large building. It's probably a 200,000 square foot building with an enormous amount of glass in it. Those were not bird safe windows to begin with. And when we began tracking it, we had 946 strikes in a year. So And the windows were retrofitted with films that are not, you can't see any of it.
So I don't speak for the council, but I guess my initial thought is, you know, what I'd hate to happen, a couple things is, for you have to go back, you know, in a couple years and add the bird safe glass. Because of bird strikes, and I know, you know, owls are in that area, I'm told. That's pretty traumatic, but that's a decision you all will need to make. But I guess my feeling is if we're at this point and we're this close, I think it would be in the best interest of the community and the council and, you know, your employees, that you take a little bit more time and really, you know, find out and at least visit these buildings. That's certainly your decision. Look at the actual costs, because we are committed to contributing some funds, but that's just where I'm at, and I don't want to go on too late into the evening. It's almost midnight, but I thought I'd just put that out there, and then, you know, whatever the council would like to do, but that's just my thought.
Any other thoughts from council members on what was stated, how you want to proceed for the rest of the evening? Do you want to go back into closed session? Do you want to adjourn? Do you want to approve the resolution as we have outlined?
Matt, would another option be approving the resolution without the bird glass provision?
If they would like, yep.
Yeah, that, we would have to go in closed session to do that.
Understood.
I highly doubt that is probably where we're going to go, but I don't know. I can't speak for the council. Again, you know, you're talking about possibly a bird a day dying. In a year you have close to 1,000 birds. In 10 years you have 10,000 birds. Is that the image you want your company to portray too? So
I wanted to just step in just from a conversation with Strang, and I just think it's important too, is when we went through the evaluation, they've only done 2, since the ordinance has been in place, only 2 buildings have been constructed that actually have bird safe glass. Theirs does not. It was in 2018, and they haven't had any strikes, and they've checked their numbers. And so I appreciate where you're coming from, but we did, again, do our research and do our analysis of talking with designers and companies that are building these buildings all of the time, and they're not doing it. They're not putting them on these buildings, and they're not having the numbers that support kind of where you're headed. And I'm not sure what the numbers exactly will be, but we looked into all of these, and buildings just aren't being designed with all of this in place today.
And just to add to 2 comments, so one was, will we go back and take more time in looking at this? We don't have time, just on multiple other facets of the overall development. As far as the image that I want this company to portray, if what you just outlined were happening, we would absolutely not allow it to get to that point. We'd track it. We don't want to have that be the image. We'd take action before then. But not something we can commit to today.
Do we need to make adjustments in closed session, or could I
Yes.
offer an amendment now?
no, I think we should go in closed
Okay.
session, because
All
I
right.
think people are not speaking.
Fair enough.
Question, is it still Stoughton Trailer's position that we need to hash this out entirely tonight? I, for one, have to be up for work in 6 hours, and I have a daughter who will probably be up in 1. And many other people are in similar positions.
That is our position.
we did bring up in our closed session the possibility of not bringing this up in 2 weeks, but perhaps scheduling a special council meeting in between if we were to reach some understanding in our negotiations.
Can I ask Claire, what would reaching an understanding in our negotiations, what would that look like?
That we didn't reach that level of discussion.
Then if I'm understanding it correctly, then yeah, with a preface of an apology, you know, I know what you guys are putting into this, so I don't want to, again, I don't want to diminish that by any means. There's nothing but gratitude for the work you guys are doing, but we do need action, and I don't want to fail to be transparent with where we are with the urgency of the schedule and the pricing and commitments that we have and how long those apply for.
I'm curious.
I'm curious in the amendment that DJ was thinking about offering. I know that we may move to closed session yet, but DJ, are you willing to speak out loud in a way that you can in open session?
I don't think so. But I would then offer the motion to close session in order to kind of wrap up this singular point that needs to be resolved.
We need to address the comment that Finance Director Ellinger put up there regarding the Zoom meeting.
Well,
said
he can quickly do another extend it. Can't you go back into Zoom and extend the time?
No, the system is not allowing me to edit an active meeting.
But you could set up another one.
I could set up another one, but how would the people get the Zoom link?
You could send it out in an email pretty quick to City Council.
Okay.
But now we're going into closed session, so that wouldn't have been. Right now, I don't think it's live. He's recording it because it zoomed out. It's not, he's recording it, it's not broadcasting live right now anyway.
The point is that the meeting was noticed as a hybrid meeting, I think. Is that correct? So that members of the public could choose to attend virtually?
Right.
So my question is, if are we going to, will the public lose access to the link that was in the agenda if we have to do a new meeting?
Yes.
Yes, they will, but the problem, the fact of the matter is that we're going into closed session and they wouldn't be allowed on that link anyway, and I don't think we'd open back up into open session.
Well, we would have to come into open session to vote on the resolution. Dave, can we just keep the Zoom link open and just ask STI to step out?
I don't know the answer to that question. I've tried editing the time, it won't allow me to. So I don't know if Zoom automatically ends it at midnight or not.
I don't think it does.
No,
If it doesn't, we're fine.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Well, let's see if there's a motion to go into closed session.
You made a motion.
I move to go into closed session and
Do you
we'll
have a second?
read everything.
Second.
I don't have a second yet. Okay.
Lisa, a second. We have to have Candy has to do roll call. Sorry, Candy.
Oh, that's totally fine, no worries. Lagaki. Yes, closed session. Caravello.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Thank you. Hiley.
Aye.
Reeves.
Aye.
Bosniak Scanlon.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
And we have Butler.
Aye.
Hirsch.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
And all those in favor.
Thanks, Candy.
You're welcome.
You know, that,
The open session.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
So, Candy, what Regina has on the screen, and I will send it to you too, is a revised resolution approving the development agreement. And if you scroll up, you'll see that, you'll see that what I did was,
It's right here. This is
yeah,
what
but if
we're-
you go up, there's more above that.
Hey.
Okay. If you go up a little bit more. Stop right there. Whoop, go down. There you go. Resolution. So the resolution is broken into 2 paragraphs now. The first one says, the Common Council of the City of Stoughton hereby approves the agreement to undertake development, attaches Attachment A, subject to the city attorney performing a final proofread and making necessary corrections, and subject to the city attorney incorporating the following changes in the agreement. If you scroll through this stuff, it's basically all the stuff we've just been talking about, Phase 1 and Phase 2 MRO amounts, the solar discussion, the sustainability stuff, and the revised language on bird-safe glass, which is what was in STI's proposal, but deleting the contribution of additional TIF funding for that. And then the next paragraph, basically, final paragraph says, Common Council authorizes the mayor and the city clerk, after the city attorney has verified that the above provisions and changes have been incorporated in the agreement, and that the agreement is ready to be executed, to execute the agreement and authorize the city's employees and consultants to take such steps as are needed to fulfill the city's obligations under the agreement. So, if the council approves this resolution, your work will be done. I will still have a little work to do to get the modifications built into the agreement and to proof it. And then the mayor and the clerk can sign it. We've heard from STI, apparently they're okay with this now. But you won't have any further work to do on this agreement. I will say, and for STI's benefit, we do need to make a couple of small tweaks to the resolution conditionally approving the CSM so that it conforms to the revised phasing plan. You can have that done at your first meeting in March. And there's a bunch of other stuff that has to get done, but I don't think the council will have to do anything else on this, to my knowledge. You ready for us to vote on this, Bill? Is there anything from STI that we need to hear before they discuss the resolution?
No, we heard what you said. We sincerely appreciate the position that the city has taken, and we thank you all again for your time. We're anxiously awaiting your vote. Thank you.
All right, with that said, there's a motion and a second on the table.
Is there for the rest?
I don't think we have a motion on this
Not for the
resolution.
resolution.
Okay, who wants to read the resolution and get a motion? Go ahead, Lisa.
Resolution by the Common Council of the City of Stoughton approving an agreement to undertake development with STI Holdings Incorporated, and I so move.
Second.
Greg Jensen is the second. Now, does anybody have any other discussions, amendments? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor of this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor? My brain is dead.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Happy birthday, DJ.